Hi, I'm Di with Sister Chicks Quilting, and I'm so excited about today because this is part 2 of my Scrappy Trip Around the World video series. I want to start off, if you haven't watched last week's video, I'll put a link to it in the description below. It tells you how to construct the block, but I've done 42 of these blocks now, and so I have some tips and tricks to help you. The first one, I would do assembly line construction if I were you. So let me show you how I did it. This is the last 5 blocks, and I have them laid right on top of each other, all in the same order. So when I sew all the blocks, all the strips together, then I cut them all together, then I lay them out in my little piles, and they end up looking like this when I cut them in the 2-inch strip. And I do them all assembly line style. Okay, it just makes so much sense when you go to your sewing machine to sit down with a design board full of these, and you can just plow right through them. All right, the second tip is, remember, set your machine on a larger stitch. My machine automatically stitches at a 2.0, and that's perfect for regular quilting. It's a nice tight seam, it's a smooth little seam, and it's even. But if you go up to 2.4, you experiment with your machine and see what works best for you. But you want them to have a nice enough stitch to hold, but you need to be able to unpick easily, okay? And that leaves me to this. Make sure you have a really sharp seam ripper. When I made my video last week, I was using my favorite seam ripper, and you know why? It's dull. It's dull probably because it's my favorite and I use it all the time, but pretty frustrating to use that seam ripper. I have a ton of seam rippers. We all do, right? And this one is so sharp it just glides right through like butter. Then another tip, do not iron your blocks as you go. When I first started making these, I was ironing them, each little piece, and then I went to unpick them. I'd set the seams and it was harder to unpick them. So this is a finished block, and it's very unironed. See how it looks, and I even made some goofs on this one because it was one I had to piece several times over. But what's cool is, on this Scrappy trip, look at the color in this block and then in this block. You think it doesn't match, but oh my gosh, they look fantastic when they're in their quilt, which you're going to get to see soon. I'm so excited. So don't iron until you get all the blocks done. And then my last tip, use a design board. You know what I did? I had 24 blocks cut up into these little units, and there's 6 units in a block, so I had piles of them. So I put them in a basket, all the same one together, and I sat down with the engineer to watch a TV show, and I sat and unpicked as I was doing them. So again, it's very important to unpick and keep these in order because they're so easy to get out of order. So when you choose your colors, I always start unpicking at the white and the blue. So I unpick my white and my blue and I lay it down. And then I look, and this is the one I just unpicked. Then I unpick the green and the blue. And that drops the green into this position and the blue up at the top. And then I look and I have to unpick, the yellow and the green. And that drops the yellow one to the bottom and puts the green up to the top. So forth and so on all the way down. Well, if you look, I have one more to unpick, and it is the very last one. It's the pink and the white. So I'm going to pull the seam out of my pink and my white, right in front of your eyes like I'm a magician or something. And I just run the seam ripper through. By the way, the reason I told you to set it to 2.4 on your stitches is because I ran these and forgot to set my machine, and they're kind of a pain. But I just take a piece of the back out, and bada bing, bada bang, there's my strip, and I can lay it down. Look at that, with the white on the bottom, the pink on the top, and there is a block. Isn't that a fun block? So pretty and colorful. Well, those are my tips and tricks to making your block. I'm sure you're going to do a fine job on those blocks, but I know you guys are dying to see setup. I thought I could do 2 setups on this. You really can't. So let's get to the setup. That's next. All right, this takes the full width of my design wall, because I'm doing 6 blocks across. And there's a couple of things that I want to show you. You always match the pink blocks, but in matching, you match your corners. So pink and white, pink and white. And of course yours are going to be whatever color you want. So that's 4. See how this is coming into shape? Oh, and then this doesn't work because I've got a pink and you want this blue to match it. So I have to flip it around because there's going to be 2 light colored blocks or whatever main block on that. And there's that. What do you think so far? So you don't want a pink and a blue because you want all 4 of the pinks to be in the same corner. So I have to turn this block like that. What do you think? Did you catch what I was doing? When I took blocks off and replaced them with something else, I didn't want the same white block to be in this 4 patch. And I just noticed I have this same white block here, so I'm going to trade this with this one. There we go. I'm absolutely in love with how this quilt turns out. It seems like this row is all pink in the centers, radiating orange, yellow, green to blue. And then this row is all blue in the centers with a green, yellow, orange to a pink. Anyway, I am really excited about sewing this quilt up. It's going to be a lot of work to sew it up because I intend on matching every corner as I go. And I'll use my pinning method to make sure I get the seams right. You'll see it come together yourself. You don't have to put it the way I had it. Every one of my blocks were the same colors. I had the low volume, then a blue, then a green, then a yellow, orange, and a pink. So I had 6 blocks. Here, that's 6, right? And I put them in the same order on every block because I knew it was going to make an incredible design, and that's what I did. One of my quilting customers was over in my shop today, and she saw this, and she thought it was going to be all one color in the middle, and then another color around, and then another color around like that. And when I first started this project, I thought that you could do that with it. But there's no way, the way the blocks are constructed. I tried so many times to put this together. And if there's a way you can make it like that, look like that with this block construction, you guys will tell me, I'm sure. But I decided I'm super happy with this one. In looking at it on the camera, there's a few things I want to change. This is actually a pink block, a pink row right here, but it's reading white. And I think I want to put that, so this one looks like a rectangle. But I want to put that, I think, on a outside corner so it doesn't kind of stand out like that. Anyway, that looks a lot better to me. Well, the whole reason I was able to make this beautiful quilt behind me is because I save my scraps or leftovers. And you know, as I was doing it, I could say, oh, that was in Jessica's baby quilt, or this was in Gordon's quilt here, this was in this quilt, or this customer gave me this piece of fabric. I knew every piece of fabric and where it came from, and that was a lot of fun. But let me tell you what I do with my fabric. When I finish a quilt, I don't keep the fabric all together. It depends on the sizes of what's left. If it's like a half a yard or more, it usually makes it onto one of my comic book cards. And I can see it right up there, and I can easily draw for it. If it's about the size of a fat quarter, it goes in a fat quarter basket. And I've of course arranged them all by color. But if it's smaller than that, I cut. Look at this. I haven't done anything with this pile yet, but it's charms from quilts that I've made that are left over. And I also cut 2.5-inch charms. I guess mini charms, as you would call them. And then, of course, the other thing that you know I cut is I'll cut 2.5-inch strips. And I have a container, and this is hilarious because this container was full. There's all my black ones right there. This container was totally full and overflowing when I started this quilt. Oh my gosh, I feel like I haven't even dented it. I notice I still have a ton of pinks. I think I'm going to have to do a baby quilt, something to do. I'll get some cute strip pattern. But as far as saving scraps go, I want to tell you who taught me about that. I had a dear friend, Pat Sparrow, who has since passed on. Just loved her to pieces. And we met at a Lori Holt quilt retreat. And if you've ever sewn a Lori Holt quilt, you know she has little teeny tiny pieces. Well, I was sewing some pieces, and I was doing the snowballs on the corners, and I'd cut off the triangle and I'd chuck it away. And she comes running over. She goes, "Di, no, you never, you're throwing this away. Look, you could cut a 1-inch square out of this little triangle." And further, her patterns are full of 1-inch squares. And I just had to laugh at that. And then she said, you know, I may waste time, but I will never waste a piece of fabric. And I just died laughing. It was the cutest little thing that I'd ever heard. And it endeared me to her forever. And I've become a good fabric saver. I use my scraps to make all kinds of things like this. So if you like what you see, please comment or leave a thumbs up or subscribe, and I will keep putting projects out, giving tips so you can hone your quilting skills just as long as you enjoy my videos. I really appreciate all of you watching them. When I hear the comments from the people that make comments, they just make my days. Some of them are really funny, some of them are really nice. I've never had a really mean one. I have been scolded a couple of times, but other than that, no big deal. No skin off my back. I love every comment that I get from you people out there in YouTube land. So until next week, bye. See you then.